So I've asked Natalie to just explain to us how she managed to manage, how do you produce one document with 47 people from different countries and with different religions and so on. So I was quite impressed by what she has achieved. And then we have Tom Lenas, which I don't have to present you to Tom Lenas. He's the one representing the Netherlands when there is a European event. And then Tom will go. He has some slides that he wants to use in his presentation, and he will go through the whole idea of being human in the age of AI. After that, you will be asked to answer a few questions. To do that, you will connect to Slido, and I will show you the way you Slido. It's just slido.com and then the hashtag diSummit. But we will do that together, so don't worry. I know you are not very technical. We will do step by step each question, and then we will have the panel composed of Natalie and her two backups sitting here, and who will then pick on the answers that you have provided them with over the app, and we want to do that in 15 minutes, no more, so that at least we have a sound basis. For Tatiana, who is over there, Tatiana is writing a whole blog about what is happening here, and she will also be the person who will record your interview later, if you want to share a few ideas on those topics, or if you have a strong opinion on one of those questions. She's the person to talk to, and if you have not been recorded yet, who has not been on the video yet? That's bad. Are you the only one? She can make a video out of that together with Nico. Okay? I think I've done everything that I needed to do. No, I need to jump on this. About fake news. We had 68,000 votes for the startup of the year. Yeah, so we're very proud with that. Of course, we all know that these votes are important, and but at least it allowed us to check who are the startups who are active. Now, what most of the startups here don't know is that we also have a track of the MAC address and the IP address who did the votes, and so we are going to do the magic calculation to get out and to get the unique votes that have been sent. Based on that, and it's already available on the app for the moment, we will publish a list, or the list is already published, of the startups, and then you will be able to cast one vote on one of the startups. Once for personality, once for startup of the year, and once for scale up of the year. If you feel that your organization belongs to more like a scale up and not a startup, I understand, but it's too late. So you will have to look for yourself into the startup even if you feel that's a scale up. And then we've been very fortunate to have Desiree here. Where is Desiree? Desiree has been our partner manager for the past 2 months. She's responsible for partner satisfaction. She will make sure that all the partners that are sitting here will be here next year as well. That's her only KPI that she has, is make sure that the partners are happy. And here is an example of the partners that are assisting us. We are very happy that this event becomes more like an event for catchers, an event for people from Brussels, and I'm so pleased with that. So we have ICT.Brussels, we have Hub Brussels who are here, we have Accenture.Brussels, we have Dell.Brussels, Omina Technology.Brussels. Everybody is Brussels tonight. So that's it. I suggest that Nathalie takes a stand now and does her presentation. I know that you have a slide here present. This is your slide, and I will hand over everything. Okay, so when you're sitting and you're thirsty, you can just stand up and take a drink. You know, you are at home here. Huh? Don't take your shoes off, but you can stand up and take a drink whenever you're thirsty, okay?
You see me like this? I would stand on the alley. On the...
Okay, turn on the music.
Okay. Can you hear me? Perfect. Okay, great. So, Philippe's question, how do you manage not 47 but 52 people? I'll get to that, but maybe let me first explain you what those 52 people are and what they do. For those of you who don't know, so at the European Commission, they all realize how important digitalization, data science, and artificial intelligence is. So importantly that in April 2018, the Commission decided to adopt a European strategy for artificial intelligence. And it means boosting investments in Europe, working together with member states, developing the necessary skills for AI, and that's something that is being done here a lot, for instance, tackling socioeconomical challenges, but also the ethical and legal issues, which we all know are there. It's a very sexy topic, ethics of AI, and it's great that it's also being addressed here because besides being very sexy, it's also very, very important. And it's in that context that the European Commission decided to set up a multidisciplinary high-level expert group on AI. 52 experts, multidisciplinary, and at least in their own eyes, very high level. You can imagine that besides, being the very light topic of ethical guidelines for AI that they had to draft, it's in any case not easy to get people around the table speaking literally different languages, because they're from 22 different countries, and then speaking different languages just because their backgrounds were so different. So you had people from academia, and we all know how well academia people play together. And those people from academia also came from very different disciplines. We had, psychology professors. We had computer scientists, engineers, lawyers, who nobody likes to play with, philosophers, ethicists. Then we had industry representatives, smaller companies, bigger companies from many different sectors. And then we had civil society organizations, consumer representatives, NGOs, trade unions. So a very nice mix. And the motto that we put for ourselves, which we really had to, is United in Diversity, which is the motto of the European Union. And somehow, I think it's because of a small miracle, we managed, on the deadline, to produce a document that is called the Ethics Guidelines for Trustworthy AI. Now, the purpose of that document was not just to give you a nice theoretical paper on ethics of AI for Europe. The idea was really to make it practical and useful. Because we all know that there are ethical issues around AI, and we all know that, European companies, organizations, and I'm also talking about the public sector, so not just private organizations, they would like to be ethical. They would like to give ethical products and services enabled by AI. Also because it's a competitive advantage that we as Europe can give. Consumers need products and services that they can trust. And if we can deliver that to them with our unique European values, which are a little bit different than the values they have in the US or China, for instance, that can be a competitive advantage. So it's a win-win-win situation. That's why, with the ethics guidelines, the idea was to keep it as practical as possible. So the experts started with some high-level philosophical ethical principles. Those were the ethicists who mostly worked on that. And then they derived from those high-level principles these 7 key requirements that you see behind me. I'm not going to go into the details of these requirements, but I'll just touch upon them briefly. Because when we talk about AI ethics, these are probably the most important things to keep in mind. First of all, human agency and oversight. What does it mean? It means that when we build AI systems, we need to make sure that they respect human agency, that they respect fundamental rights, and that there is some level of human oversight in place. Does it mean that for each and every AI system you need a human in the loop looking at every decision? No. But it does mean that you need to make an assessment when you have your AI system of when it might be necessary that there is human interaction. someone who has an overview of how the decision-making process goes, especially if those decisions will then be taken and will have an impact on individuals' lives, right? And there it's very important that distinctions are being made between AI systems that directly interfere with users, end users, consumers, AI systems that are deployed in B2B contexts, AI systems that are deployed in public sector contexts. So there are different things there that we need to tailor. Technical robustness and safety. It sounds maybe a little bit at odds with ethics guidelines. But if your AI has the best ethical intentions in the world, but cannot foresee that it cannot be hacked, for instance, that the data cannot be accessed by others, then your system is not very ethical either. Even if you have the best ethical intentions, it's not trustworthy. I wouldn't want to use it. So that's why this is an important part that is also included in these ethics guidelines for AI. Privacy and data governance. I'm sure that everyone here in this room is familiar with the GDPR. But GDPR is one thing. That's to protect our privacy, personal data. But besides that, there is also data governance. And with that, we mean ensuring high-quality data. Garbage in, garbage out. Ensuring the integrity of the data. And also putting in place mechanisms that ensure that the right people have access to data. And the people who don't need to have access to the data should not. Transparency, maybe one of the most important requirements that the expert group identified. Trying to put in place traceability mechanisms. Explainability, which for a lot of AI systems, based on deep learning, for instance, is a challenge. But explainability doesn't mean that you can exactly pinpoint how a certain decision was taken. It means that if you interact with an end user, and if the decision of the AI system has an impact on that end user, that you can explain the logic of the decision making. So that if that decision might be wrong, because we all know that an AI system will never be 100% accurate, that person can challenge a decision. Especially as we see that AI is increasingly being used in all domains of our lives, also the domains where they have a significant impact of our lives. Not always, but in those situations where that is true, we need to ensure that transparent processes are in place. Diversity, non-discrimination. The fact that there are not enough women that are right now developing AI systems indirectly also leads to the fact that AI systems have a sort of bias. Because in the data, the fact that there are women in the world, and not just women, but a lot of other groups, are not always reflected. Has a different gender. So we better ensure that the decisions that these AI systems bring are relevant for that other half of the population too. And again, it's not just women. But we need to ensure that the data is inclusive. We need to ensure that those constructing the algorithms are also diverse, because it's not just the data, it's also the way in which you build the actual algorithm. Societal and environmental well-being. I think it was this week or last week that an article circulated about the impact on the environment that AI systems have, that training algorithms can have. It's very intensive. So this is something that we need to think about as well. Because we can try to ensure ethical AI as much as we want. It's fixed. It's fixed, great. But if we don't take care of our planet, who cares how ethical our AI is, right? And the last one, accountability. We need to ensure that proper accountability measures are in place, that someone takes responsibility for AI decisions, because otherwise I'm not going to trust the AI system either. And that also means possibility for redress, again, in case a decision is wrong and impacts me. there is no perfect AI system, even though a lot of successes are being booked right now forward. And to make it practical, they created an assessment list for organizations. For each of these 7 requirements, they identified key questions that you, as an organization, can run over and see, for your particular AI application, am I taking this into account? Am I ensuring that the quality of my data is sufficiently high? Do I have mechanisms in place for that? Do I have mechanisms to verify potential biases in my AI system? And because we know that we don't know everything yet, and this is a fairly new thing, the idea is now to ask all stakeholders throughout the whole of Europe and beyond to test out this assessment list, to pilot it. So if you're an organization that develops or deploys AI, why don't you participate? We launched the piloting phase on the 26th of June. It will be an online survey. And all you need to do is take the assessment list of the guidelines, you apply it to your AI application, and you see whether it makes sense. Because there might be questions that are just not relevant for your AI application. There might be questions that are not clearly formulated. Now, all this feedback will help the European Commission and member states to ensure sound policy making around AI. So it's important that you participate and make your voice heard in that. So that's in a nutshell the work I'm doing. And maybe 5 points to close, and then hand it over to the next speaker. I think when we talk about AI ethics, we need to dare to ask the big questions. Some people say it's too early to talk about ethics of robots and AI, and no AI will take over the world anytime soon. While that is true, there are a lot of issues that are already present today and that need to be addressed. So it does make sense to ask also the bigger questions now. Not just, is this AI system biased, but what does it mean for us as a society, for us as human beings, to rely on those systems? Not just AI systems, but technology in general. Second point, make your voice be heard. I hear too often this phrase that, oh, but I don't have any impact, and the Commission is just doing things, and they don't know what they talk about. Well, for once, they know that they don't know what they talk about, and they ask your help. So participate in this piloting phase, and also consider joining the European AI Alliance, which is a multi-stakeholder platform where you can give ideas on AI policy making in Europe. The third point, it's crucial to build communities. And that's something that is trying to be done here. And we need to do that at local level, but also at European and global level. And AI can help us with that as well. My fourth point is that we need to take responsibility. Even these high-level experts, on some points, they kind of chickened out a little bit and said, oh, but I don't know if I have that right level of expertise to already tell you now. No. Of course, if you don't know, you don't know. But we cannot hold back. We cannot wait. We know that we need to invest in AI and invest in our future. And we know that we need to do it in a right way. And we need to learn along we go. We cannot just wait and hold back and be this region that everyone forgets about. And then maybe my final point. You probably all heard of this movement, AI for good. AI is a technology that can be used for very good things and very bad things. And it's our individual and collective responsibility to use AI for good. And I know this is an event about AI ethics, but just to close, being ethical and being good, it's not just about AI. It's great that we talk about ethics so much in the context of AI, but what about all these other technologies? I leave it at that. Thank you.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, here he is.
You want to save some?
The only presenter with slides, with real slides tonight.
Yeah, I'm always a teacher, so I always need slides. I don't know why. I always need slides to present stuff. So, thanks for the invitation. And like any academic, I always struggle. What am I going to tell at the next presentation? And like some people know me from before here in the room, I've been asked a lot of times, can you come and tell us what you guys think about AI? And so colleagues like Luc Bersini was here last year, and me, we went to this kind of events, and we were explaining, look guys, when you talk about AI, you're wrong. You're not talking about AI. AI is something completely different, and you should define it like this. I'm not gonna do this now today. I think probably you heard already many talks like that, and I'm not gonna bore you with that, so I'm gonna talk about something different. I could also say, okay, in my lab we're doing fantastic stuff, and I can show you the latest breakthroughs we are having using machine learning, applying it to medical questions, and I heard some people talking here, they're actually from the health tech, so I can give you more details if you like, but I'm not gonna talk about that today. I took a risk. I'm gonna talk about something completely different, something that's actually my personal interests about AI, and which I don't have enough funding and time for to work on it. So, and it was triggered actually by the poster. And on the poster you see like this very nice catchphrase saying, being human in the age of AI. And this was for me like, okay, what are you trying to get here, Philip? What do you want people to respond to this kind of question? And for me, it was like, if I look at this question, you can say, okay, it's about people getting unemployed, or maybe their jobs are changing, or this kind of stuff, or people just questioning, okay, all this technology, do I really need this technology in my life? Why should I care about AI? Life is really difficult enough. So you can think about these kind of things when you look at this title. But I'm more like from the science perspective. I'm working in a science faculty. So I try to go a bit deeper, and then my next question is, what makes us human? And this is actually an essential question that comes back. I mean, over the entire period of science, religion tries to answer this, science tries to answer this, and again now in AI, we're actually trying to answer this kind of question. What are we in respect to these machines that might become more intelligent than us, actually smarter than us, understand whenever we are actually having some kind of emotional crisis, and can profit from this thing without us knowing it? So you want to know how, as a person, how can I put myself in this kind of context, and how should I deal with this? And again, this is a very old question. People have been asking this question for a very, very long time, not in respect to AI, but in respect to primates and other animals. Certainly, when Darwin came with his theory of survival of the fittest, natural selection, suddenly every animal was actually at the same level as the human being. We were no longer standing out on top of this entire spectrum. And so people have been struggling also there, like, okay, what is then our position? What makes us different? How can we think about a human being? Why are we not simply a monkey or an ape, like you would see in this kind of context? And for this, I would like to point to this very nice book of Thomas Suddendorf, who's a psychologist, who wrote a book called The Gap. And he tries to provide a scientific answer to what is this difference between primates and human beings. And the reason why I took this book, not because I like it very much, but because he made one statement that actually I think is very essential. He believes that the difference between primates and humans is that we can imagine. We can think about alternative futures and act accordingly, which seems to be something very much human-like. So that's quite interesting, because if we want to build machines like humans, we actually have to build machines that can imagine, that can think about alternative futures and act according to these alternative futures. And this, again, is nothing new. I mean, the book is very recent, but if you go back to the history of AI, you go back to cybernetics from the 50s, people already have been discussing this kind of questions. And I really like this particular book of Judea Pearl called The Book of Why, because he argues this much better than me, that it's not about how and what, it's about why we want to do something, right? And he explains what you need to actually answer the question of why in a system. And this is what we're expecting from our AI system. If everybody in the room is working on their machine learning technique, trying to detect patterns in their data, and they will have at some point to say, okay, why do you arrive at this conclusion? And this was also mentioned before by the previous speaker. And Judea Pearl, was very famous because his work on Bayesian networks actually states here, to build truly intelligent machine, you need to teach them the relationship between cause and effect. And this is something that actually is escaping us still. You might have very sophisticated deep learning technology that allows to find very nice patterns and then classifies a monkey or a person, very good, but it does not understand why or what it is doing, okay? And this is the essential question of what AI is about. Okay, why is this thing actually like that? And if you look at the history of AI research, and at least I had to drop one part of what is AI in my presentation, Currently, AI is about systems that think and act rationally, which means systems that I can actually understand and control fully. But rationally is not the economic or social rationality. It simply means making systems that optimally achieve a predefined goal. That's what you're working with. So you're not mimicking human behavior. You're not trying to make the next entity in life. You're simply making systems that are very optimal in producing some kind of results. And in the book, Judea Pearl actually discusses this very extensively. That's why I like it a lot. And he defines what he calls the ladder of causation. And he defines 3 levels in the ladder of causation. At the first level, you have seeing, the second doing, and the third imagining. So this first level seeing is simply what we're doing all the time now. All the hype about AI is at that level. Nothing more than that. It's actually pattern detectors that are very good. I mean, deep learning is very good at finding very nice patterns and making good classifications, but it's not at all good at interventions or counterfactual reasoning, which is at the higher levels, and what you need actually to make artificial general intelligence, real AI systems. Okay, so this is the goal that we actually have in AI research. We care a lot about pattern detection and trying to find ways of making good predictions. I mean, this is very useful for very different kind of applications. But if you talk about AI, you're talking about the big picture. You're talking about artificial general intelligence. And to do that, I went a bit too fast here, sorry, I'll go back for a second. So to do that, you have these different levels, and at this interventional level, the idea is that the system needs to have a model, and this model needs to be able to say, okay, what happens if I remove that parameter? What happens to my data? Can I still make correct decisions? How does this actually work? And we're trying to get to that what-if scenario over there. But to the counterfactual level, it's about imagining. It's saying, okay, I took an action, and now in hindsight, what would have happened if I would have taken another action? How would this have changed the world? And this is actually what you need in terms of reasoning to make artificial general intelligence. So you need systems that are able to self-reflect. And this is what we're actually aiming for. So this was a statement of Thomas, and he added also, creatures who do not have this capacity cannot be bound into a social contract and cannot take moral responsibility. So going back to the previous speaker, this is very crucial. If you want to have your AI system to be ethical, you need to give your AI system the power to do counterfactual reasoning, because otherwise the system cannot understand what it did wrong. We can say, okay, you're wrong, we reprogram you. But if you want to make a self-learning adaptive system, this system has to learn relationship between cause and effect. It has to adapt. So it needs to have a way to think counterfactually, because then you can put into a certain ethical perspective, and you actually can demand from the system to be actually morally responsible. So how does this work in humans? Because we can already see people thinking about, okay, how am I going to program this? How can I put this in some kind of system? But let's look back at humans. How does this work for us? Because we are these counterfactual systems that can actually do this kind of things. We can make social contracts. We build societies, communities, whatever you want, but we do it based on these rules and these ethics. The key point here is emotions. We have emotions, and these moral emotions that actually allow us to think, to self-reflect about the consequences of our actions and adjust our behavior in function of this self-reflection. So just a basic highlight. So what you have in terms of basic emotions are anger, disgust, fear, joy, sadness, and so on. These are purely individual reflexes that help you in responding to threats and to other environmental circumstances. What we're talking about is self-conscious emotions. Things like guilt, shame, embarrassment, pride, empathy, this kind of stuff. Okay? This means that a system needs to be able to understand how it is perceived by somebody else, because you cannot have self-conscious emotions if you don't understand what it means to be in somebody else's shoes, or if you do not understand how your actions are perceived by bystanders and how they judge you afterwards. So this means that you have to make self-conscious AI systems in order for them to abide to a social contract or to actually follow moral guidelines. Emotions is a thing that we have. Where does it come from? It has evolved. We don't have this simply by chance, it's just for fun. There's a reason why we have emotions as human beings, because it allows us to make binding communities, and it allows us to seal commitments. And then we come into something that I worked on a lot myself in the last 5 to 10 years. People have been showing that humans have the capacity to make commitments. What does that mean? It means that if you have a spectrum of actions, and you commit to something, it means that you exclude certain actions because you're not allowed to use them because you committed to do something particularly for somebody else or in the society. And this was shown in a very nice book by Randolph Ness with a number of articles called On the Evolution and the Capacity for Commitment. And we ourselves worked on this, and we actually asked the question, okay, if you want to make an agent-based system that actually can make commitments, and that these commitments leads to more cooperation, how would this work? And I call this personally social-cultural AI, which is the question, okay, how do you make systems that are socially interesting, where cooperation is key, and where moral guidelines are actually followed? And this paper was published in Scientific Reports called Good Agreements Make Very Good Friends. But furthermore, when you commit, it's not only for once, it's for long periods. And so the question then becomes, okay, you can make mistakes. How do you deal with mistakes? How do you deal with mistakes? You apologize, and you get forgiveness, right? And you apologize, you give a flower, or you give money, or you give a present, whatever you need to get done to actually continue the relationship. So should an AI system do the same thing? In this paper, we show that if you give to an agent the possibility to apologize and forgive, actually you can have long-lasting cooperative relationships without any problem, right? And this is actually becomes a very important mechanism. And whatever we showed mathematically in competition actually very nicely mapped on a book from Michael McCulloch called Beyond Revenge, which actually is arguing exactly what we show mathematically in our models. Final one I would like to point out is guilt. So, do you want your AI system to feel guilty when it does something wrong, right? It does something wrong, so you expect from your fellows around the table, that people that you know, your children, your friends, your family, that if they do something wrong, they feel guilty. So imagine that we're running AI system running around here, they do something wrong, should they feel guilty? How should they express their guilt? This is very important because guilt is influencing our decision making. So if you're expecting the same from an AI system that's walking around in this room also, it should also use this kind of possibility. And so guilt is very important. Why? Because after the fact, you can use it to confess, I did something wrong, I will never do it again, or you can try to repair the error that you made or apologize, but you do all these things afterwards to avoid some kind of punishment, right? An agent, an AI system, might also want to avoid some kind of punishment actually in the end. Or a priori, it could also be that because I can do counterfactual reasoning, I know that if I take action A, I might end up feeling guilty, so I will avoid action A and I will take action B, right? And so this is also important because if you are making systems that make decisions themselves, independent of a human being, then you need some kind of way to actually avoid that they make certain choices. Okay, and then guilt could be a mechanism. And then you can ask, is an agent that feels guilty more prone to be cooperative? Or can you trust it better than an agent which actually has not that capacity to feel guilt? And we actually showed, again, mathematically an agent-based system that this actually works. As soon as guilt is in an agent, and this guilt can be recognized by the outside agent, it leads to an explosion of cooperation in this kind of system. So the agent prone to guilt is much more collaborative. So counterfactual thinking about guilt is useful, because you actually prevent the feeling of guilt because you try to avoid it. So it's actually like a process of self-debugging. So imagine that you build your AI system, and your AI system will use some kind of guilt mechanism to actually do on self-debugging. So, okay, based on the actions that I can take, I should avoid this because then I actually end up in a state that I don't like. This is actually important because we expect these things from human beings, but do we also expect it from an AI system? And should AI system actually have emotions? And on the right, you see again a nice book. We're already there. There's a huge community has been active for the last 10 to 15 years working on effective computing. They actually can recognize your emotions. So they can actually see what's going on, whether you are happy or whether you're not happy, and they can actually use that information in decision making. So we end up with this guy, Hal. I know what the problem is just as well as you do, he's telling David in this film, right? Because he can recognize the emotion and he can act based on the emotions, and he removes the astronaut from the space station. So the question also becomes, is an AI system less likely to lie if it has moral emotions? Because you can count it, there will be a possibility to build a system that can lie to you, right? Even though you put ethical guidelines, whatever you want, somebody will have to control what's going on there, but the system will be able to lie to you. So what's going on there, and how can we deal with that? And can we use our own emotion? Because if you think very few far in the, and I'm thinking now very philosophical and far in the future, if you think that these systems are actually acting at the same level as you, as your colleague, or as some kind of help in your environment, how do you want to interact with these kind of systems? Can you use the way to social interact with other people using your emotions to actually guide and direct an AI system, and how should this actually work? So to conclude my talk, maybe in 2051, Philip, we will have a new diSummit with the title Being AI in a Human Society. And thank you very much for your attention.
I don't think we have to wait until till 2051. Let's do it next year. That's the perfect title. Keep your microphone because you will still be using it. I now need to switch from this PC to the other one. And
Yeah. I can turn it off.
and comment on passe à la présentation initiale? So, I'm sorry. I followed your plan. I'm very sorry. I'm human. So I don't know how to switch from one presentation to the other, but here we go. Now it's your turn. It's your turn to give some input. It won't take long. It will take 15 minutes. We will go over 3 questions that we would like you to answer. And to do that, we would like you to join the Slido environment. You just go to slido.com and you choose diSummit as a hashtag. Once you've done that, you will see different questions. And the first question that we will see should come up very soon as Ricardo helps me to show the question. So the question is, Europe is considered to be way behind the USA and China in terms of the AI race. Yeah, we all agree on that. How do you see the possible contribution of Brussels or Europe to the AI development? So while you are answering this first question, I will ask the 3 speakers and Nathanael. You'll be seated. We'll have the princess in the middle and the 2 rugby players next to her. That's how you see it.
So.
And while you are working on that, I will give Nathanael my microphone, because without microphone, Nathanael won't be able to participate. And because Nathanael has not presented himself, let me quickly present you to the person who has just returned from Brussels, from Paris, today, to lead the AI for Belgium initiative. Nathanael will be the driving force behind AI for Belgium. Has been for a while, but it was not official yet. It has been officialized yesterday or last Friday. Nathanael, can you please introduce yourself very quickly and say what you will be able to do for the AI community?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Philippe. To be very short, I'm very honored to have been hired now by the Belgian government to help this initiative led by several institutions and people already. Agoria, for example, Digitizer, are part of the AI for Belgium coalition. So to make a short summary of my CV, I used to be a researcher in AI in 1998. I've studied with Patrice Latine here, and some of the people here in the room. I have the chance to teach them some rudiments of AI. I've had a mixed public-private career. I've been an entrepreneur, I've been director for innovation in the Brussels capital region. I was very involved in the technology transfer, also at the Polytechnic School. And more recently, I joined the French government as advisor for innovation and artificial intelligence, and I headed the first phase of the strategic plan in AI in France. Then I founded the hub France Intelligence Artificielle, and I was the implemented part of the strategic plan. So I collaborate with Cédric Villani, for example. And in June 2018, I've been contacted by the cabinet of Alexander De Croo because Alexander De Croo wanted to have a strategy in Belgium too. And I was in contact with Joseph Fatouche, which is the advisor responsible for the national plan on AI. And we delivered a first draft of a strategy that was presented on March 18 this year. And I'm very pleased to join you. Some of you I already know. Some of you I will meet today and the day after, and to contribute to the development of the AI for Belgium coalition. So what is the AI for Belgium coalition? It's like a hub, let's say, that it's a think tank and a do tank that will animate the community in AI in Belgium, with a think tank part addressing all the policy questions, and one of our main goals is to have some budget for AI at the different level, in different regions and at the federal level, and make also all the community collaborate much more and have an international visibility. So one of my role will be to get this Belgian AI community in contact with all the European hubs.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nathanael. Nathanael, if I remember, that initial contact with the government was done at the diSummit. I remember you sitting down with Joseph Fatouche on the 27th of June. So diSummit is not only used to change jobs, but also used to get in contact with the federal government. So we only have 17 answers to the original questions. I'm sure that Pierre-Louis Guiraud has not answered yet. It's too technical for him. Hit him, Scarlett. Hit him again. So 18, that's much better. What I suggest is that we'll ask Nathanael to continue to talk until we have 25 answers.
What?
No. Okay, Tom, you saw the answer. Can you give your opinion on no, you saw the question. So the question is on the board. Can you quickly give your opinion?
So,
it's fine.
Okay, we start with Nathanael. Okay.
Okay. It's considered behind US and China. Yes, it's a reality. It's far behind, but there is a coordinated plan at the EU level, and many countries now prepare their strategic plan, if it is not already done yet. But there are some guidelines that are very important for Europe that we can work on. The first thing is to work on the investment in AI. So I think the European Commission has already decided to invest much more in AI in the future, in Horizon Europe, for example. A second thing is to reinforce the technology transfer. So we do have an excellent research in Europe here, but it is not well connected with the industry, and it is very important in the AI domain, much more than in others, that this community can talk together much more. So it's a big effort to do to narrow the academic world and the industrial world. I think we have to develop some data platform in Europe in order to share all the industrial big players in China and in the United States, but at the industrial level, it could be very interesting to have data platform of shared data between some big companies to develop new products and services in AI. So we have to create hubs. So Europe is very fragmented, and the idea was given by Omar Mohout in one of his papers. So we have now very innovative region in Europe, in Paris, in London, in Brussels, and this all must be connected. So this is one of the main reasons the AI for Belgium coalition exists, is to connect with the others in Europe. I think we should reinforce the place of design in the conception of new usage of AI. So we have excellent designers, but they are not included in the innovation process enough. So this is one so obvious that GDPR could use to develop the business in Europe. But we can see now with Facebook different difficulties in the recent months that GDPR can inspire maybe other companies. So if we sensibilize the European community well, we could have a strong economy based on these ethics guidelines.
Okay, thank you, Nathaniel. It's all in your hands. I said 25. Yeah. You must be very lucky that Nathaniel came to an end here. Next question, it won't be the case. So let's go to Natalie. Natalie, you are driving the contribution of Brussels and certainly Europe. Just a quick word.
I mean, I see here two answers, and I think both are very relevant. So the first one is, there are actually already a lot of public initiatives taking place, but perhaps they're not visible enough. And that's also our fault, that we need to communicate more about them and then leverage them to get more investments from the private sector. And then the second point is, it's literally what I've been working on, in fact, and what I've been discussing is this competitive advantage that Europe can have by focusing on AI that is human-centric, trustworthy, puts the user in the center, and that's something that can differentiate Europe from other regions.
Okay, thank you very much, Natalie. Tom.
I was quickly checking the new answers. So let me be the devil's advocate here. I mean, we're way behind in what sense? Because, okay, if you want to compete with Google and Facebook, yes, we're way behind. But if you think about where, for instance, deep learning is coming from, it's coming from France. So I think you have to be very careful in what you say we're way behind. Yeah, we're maybe way behind with the big businesses like Google's, like Facebook, like Amazon's, but the question is, does Europe really want to have big companies like Google, Facebook, and Amazon in Europe? So that's why I'm saying, be careful what you wish for, and don't forget what we have. I mean, there is a lot of expertise out there, and because I'm an academic, I have to say it, which is hugely underfunded. But the point is simply that there's a lot of expertise out there in a lot of universities, and you will be amazed actually how much of the novel technology in America or China is driven by inventions that happened in Europe. So I would not say that we're way behind. I think it's good to be behind, because then we can see the mistakes that they make, and we can see how we can improve them, and we can do it better. And I think this is how you should think. You should not say, oh, shit, we missed the train, we missed the train. No, you watch what they do, you agree, you try to follow. If you don't agree, say, I would like to do it differently, and we can maybe do it better. And I think this is the huge difference that we actually can make as Europe and also as Brussels, which is a very small area inside the world.
Excellent point, thank you very much. Let's switch to the second question, and let's make sure that we have more than 20 answers on the second question.
Still the first.
It's coming. It's 2 seconds away. Oops. So about the dangers of AI, yeah? But that's one thing. That's basically, we as Catholics, what we want to hear about is all the bad things. But what about the good things, yeah? What are the positive changes that can be brought by AI? Take a minute and write down your answer, because it's quite important to be positive for once.
We can already intervene, no? Can we say something?
Whenever. Whenever you start talking, everybody listens.
No, but they can tap when my kids do the same thing. They keep on clicking while I'm talking to them. So
Okay, okay. So let's.
So I actually have to agree with what you said before about AI for good. Forget about AI for good, right? Because in the end, why would you do AI for bad in the first place, right?
Excellent point. Yeah.
So there's a lot of any technology. There's a danger there. So why would AI be any different in any danger there? So please get off this idea about we should impose ethics only on AI. No, it's way broader than that. It's in any digital thing that you should look at. Actually, I think what people fear here is that AI gives a sense of something that's smarter than you. And like I was saying, it can lie to you. It can actually cheat. It can actually take advantage of you. And this maybe I think is why people are much more afraid and that they will impose, we won't have ethics for AI. So I think here, AI will bring positive things, and I hope that people are smart enough to say, I will need that and I don't need that. And just not follow blindly whatever people are offering to them.
Excellent point.
And I give the floor to the other people.
Thank you. Should I? Yeah. I think there are broadly two things. The first is that there are specific applications that AI can be used for. There are many that really enhance our lives in a very positive way. And there are so many domains in which that is already happening. When we think about transport, when we think about healthcare, which is a very big one that we're trying to invest in a lot. And that is already taking place, and that's great. AI is literally able to save lives, to help saving lives. And a second point is that it's positive is that AI can actually help fixing some of the issues that AI has. The issue of bias, yes, it's something that every AI system, just as every human being, has inherent biases, but AI can actually help us also spotting those biases. So we need to think in this dual way.
Ladies and gentlemen, you asked for it. We only 16 answers. Here is Nathanael with his answer.
Okay. So I think AI can now address things where too little investment has been done yet at the moment. I will give 3 examples. The first one is to focus on the medical aspect, but before the diseases. So all the prevention can be done through AI and IoT. So advise you to have better behavior and not to become sick. Much investment has been done on new medicines, for example, and very poor investment on prevention. And AI can help every people to take care of their own health. Another example is for managing all the public budget. When we face complexity too much, we can use AI for recommendation, or when the complexity supersedes the human capacities without having some political stuff in it. So it can be one of the applications of AI that will be very positive. And the third thing is to develop common of data, so we can share our data together in order to make more well-being together, so have more transparency on the data and develop collaborative solution with AI, in particular in education, for example.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Let's move to the last question. Automatically and swiftly.
With human intelligence.
Maybe while we have that last question still there, by the way, on the 26th of June, these 52 high-level experts will publish a report which is called Policy and Investment Recommendations for AI. And that really aims to set very concrete recommendations for the European Commission and member states on what kind of actions they can take with AI to bring a positive impact. So if you're out of ideas, read the report on the 26th of June.
Excellent. Let's move to the last question then. A long question, I won't read it. You can read it yourself. Use your phone, answer the question, so that we can move to the buffet as soon as possible.
Zero answers.
Okay, Tom, I think there is a lot to be said on that point.
There's a huge amount of things to be said on that point. But what should I say on that point? Again, at devil's advocate, maybe. Huh?
I like that one. Do the devil. Yeah, just play the devil.
I play the devil. So I think, of course, I think it's very important to think about ethics. I was arguing also here about this kind of things. But I'm a bit surprised what you said about AI can help us in removing bias, which is not really true, in my opinion. Because if you look at, for instance, people been working on bioinformatics for the last 20 years, they only now discover that they should take into account in their data not only the genome of white males, but also of white females and brown and whatever kind of color you want. And that you should make it clear in your data that if you predict disease, it should be based on a good sample of data. So I don't think our systems will help us, but how we, as people constructing those systems, should think about our data. And it's not simply taking off the shelf your favorite deep learning tool. It's spending at least 90% of your time cleaning up your data and not playing with the AI tools. So I think it's not the question how should AI development can help to that. People should be trained to manage their data, and there should be more money invested in helping people to be trained to manage and to analyze data, and not necessarily in the development of AI systems, in my opinion. And I think this will already solve a huge amount of problems without waiting for the optimal AI system to try to solve that problem for us.
I have an answer.
Very good.
When I said that AI can help us, and really literally what that question said, I would say yes, that AI can help us with that. And I think it's beyond just fixing gender bias, racial inequality in the AI systems. I really strongly believe that because we are all now talking about ethical issues of AI and bias in AI systems, this forces us to look at our own biases that we have as human beings. Because suddenly we are aware that when we program an AI system, when we take a data set, when we compile that data set, when we design the algorithm, well, maybe I just don't take into account automatically that there are also women in society, and I need to think of that. And then maybe, when I go to other domains in my life, which have nothing to do with AI, I'm also going to make that same reflection. So I think that talking about AI ethics and developing AI systems and being aware of the fact that inadvertently, without that we want it, there are biases that sneak into that, it opens our eyes for the fact that in our day-to-day lives, regardless of AI, we have those biases, and we need to try to tackle them.
So can I intervene for a second?
Yeah, we only have 18 answers, so you can go for hours.
So just to go back to the devil's advocate. So I hope you're right. Let me put this first, right? But let me be very skeptical about this. If you look at current elections and how people vote, right, and how people are biased in the way that they vote, I do not believe that if a few people are thinking about ethics in the AI system, they will change society, and society will remain biased for as long as there are humans in the society. So removing that completely will actually either force people to say, I don't care about your AI system because it does not correspond to what I think, because it's biased against my opinion. So why should I consider your system in the end, right? I understand, and like I said, I fully agree with what you're claiming, and I hope it's true. But I think people are not that perfect. And then in the end, they will keep working with biases, and they will keep preferring an outcome which is, in their opinion, socially biased because it corresponds to what they're expecting and what they're actually wanting to see from the data, and not to something that they don't want to see at all. Right? It comes back to this entire discussion. why do political parties that give you the facts, why don't they get any votes? Right? It's the same thing for an AI. Imagine that it's an AI system. It's giving you the facts. It's giving you the explanation. And people say, screw you. I don't care. I'm going for that opinion. So you see what where I'm going to?
Yeah, that's about not a pessimistic view of AI, but of humanity in general.
Yeah.
I try to
I
be
was
an
devil's
optimist.
advocate.
So I suggest that Nathaniel wraps up this last question, and then we will all move to the buffet after that.
Yes.
So I do agree with both of you. To wrap up, I think the design of AI product and services enforce the people that design that to think about gender, racial equality, social justice, and the bias that we will put into the system, because there is always a bias. So the need for transparency and the need for in the design makes this kind of questions much more relevant today. And if we sensibilize all the population with that, we can maybe have more rational acting because the decisions are most based on data, and the people must be aware of the way they are living in. So that's why education about AI and sensibilization is also so important.
Well. So that was it. You can hear me. So that was our panel. I would really like to thank our three speakers. Tom for his being a devil. Nathalie for bringing structure and positive thoughts, and Nathaniel for wrapping everything up. Thank you very much. Let's give them a warm applause.
Thank you, Philippe.
So, before we move on, I just would like to say a few words. I mean, this would not be possible without you. This is an event that basically is there for you. So if you weren't there, we wouldn't organize it. We are organizing the diSummit. We, for the moment, have about 600 people who have registered and who want to participate to the event. We had 750 last year. So we can already say that the title of the event is something that is interesting. But it's not only the title, it's you, everybody who is going to present at the diSummit. We will have we will have exactly 13 workshops of 1 hour, picking on one of the different topics. We will have over 40 different presentations, giving you some insights or even triggering new ideas for you. We have more than 50 companies whose logo is on our website somewhere to support us. We have the brightest minds of Belgium, and we have all these different data science community, AI communities, digital communities, legal hackers, all these different communities who are using technology today and who supports this event, and we are so grateful to them to support us. Yeah. So if you are a speaker, make sure that the content of your pitch is clearly defined. As the content of your pitch is, when your content of your pitch is clearly defined, we will also be able to push it into the market and say, don't forget, join the workshop of Euronova, because now everything is updated. Or we could say, don't forget to join the amazing presentation of Chris Peters. All these different elements can only be pushed if you add the information on our website. And it's important because it's basically your event. Yeah, you are defining the agenda. You are the people who will be talking. So make sure that if you believe that your topic is more important than somebody else's, make sure that it's being heard. So everything is there to be able to communicate about it. We even have a hashtag here. Yeah, diSummit. Use it. Use the hashtag diSummit, even if in Berlin there's another diSummit, just break them. And and let's build this together. We started in 2014 a community called the Data Science Community. Until we now have in 6 different cities data science meetups taking place. One of the biggest is Leuven for the moment, who is very, very active there. You know, every 4 weeks there is an activity taking place there. We have done more than 190 different meetups over the past 5 years. Yeah, I mean today, and I think and definitely Natalie said it. It's all about sharing that knowledge, explaining what it is, showing that it's not the devil. Showing that it's human and that it can enforce us and help us doing things. Without your help, without the spread of those ideas through these different communities, it will not be possible. Yeah. So make sure that in the coming 2 weeks, that you spread out the word and that you make sure that a lot of people attend our event. We have the support of the major corporates. We have the support of the major political instances. We have the support of all the communities, so why not party tonight and celebrate this success, because you're all attending and you're all presenting. Thank you very much for spending your time. Thank you very much for giving your input every day to the data science community. I wish you a very, very pleasant evening, a lot of chatting and networking, and I think that the buffet is ready and the food is ready to be served. Thank you very much.